Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's hump day.
Woo-hoo!
Coming to you live from the luscious loins of LaPel, Indiana. Welcome to the 100th. That's 100 edition of Midweek Crisis. That's right, 100. But this is the 257th fucking podcast. Thank you guys for joining me tonight. We've got Eddie Flowers in the house. We got Jacob Cagan in the house. But first, before we start this conversation, it is very important to me. Oh, guys. This is heavy. Check this out. For months now, I have been trying to find the whereabouts of this beast, the beast of Busco. If you know the whereabouts of the beast of Busco, email me at shipwreckshep@outlook.com. And you're thinking to yourself, I can't imagine all of the emails Shep has received over this subject. And I'm telling you, not one fucking email. How much longer must we wait to know the whereabouts of the beast of Busco? All right. Jacob's laughing. Oh, we're all laughing. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and pleasure to introduce to you Eddie Flowers of Heavy Mother and the Gizmos and Jacob Cagan of Leather and Mace. What's up, guys?
How you doing, man?
Howdy.
How was your daytime commute?
Long.
That's what she said, right?
Good to me.
Yeah,
I'm not
of course.
driving. So
Right out the gate. Sorry.
Yeah, there's construction all over the place. There's traffic all over the place.
Thank you guys so much for making the drive all the way up from fucking Bloomington. That's insane. It's awesome. Thank you very much for making that drive. Super cool.
good to be here.
Yeah, good to
Hell
be here.
yeah.
Thanks for having us on.
Absolutely. So, if you've seen Midweek Crisis, you know that every show, I always give my guests the gift of VHS. So, today I'm going to hook you guys up with a record as well, or a vinyl, whatever. So,
Record.
I cheated a little bit on the vinyls. Record. All right. Eddie says record. We're going with record. So for Eddie, I grabbed you a copy, an unopened copy of Irving Berlin's White Christmas.
There you go.
I figured you might like this film.
I think I've seen it sometime in my life. I
Hell
think.
yeah. So I grabbed that for you.
Right.
And then, Jacob, you're going to love this. I grabbed you a copy of The Sword and Stone.
Oh, hell yeah.
Hell yeah. And then I cheated on this one here, though. So it just so happens. So I asked Eddie, I said, do you like sweet? And he said, the sweet. And I said,
Oh, yeah.
yes. This is my personal copy of one of the best rock and roll albums of the fucking 70s.
It's a good one.
Sweet.
Hell
What is
yeah.
what is the album?
It's this is the Desolation Boulevard. It has Ballroom Blitz,
Nice.
Fox on the Run.
Oh, hell yeah.
Hell yeah. It's a great album.
Okay.
And then for you, a copy a Kung Fu Overdrive's latest vinyl.
Where'd you get that? What the
I
hell?
just so happened to have them on to promote a show that they had at the Radio.
Okay.
I think it was like about a month and a half ago.
Hey, man. That's
So
awesome. That's
hell
awesome.
yeah. And I figured I'd hook you up with a copy of that.
Cool.
My personal copy is actually right back here on the whatever.
And I complimented it just moments ago.
Yes,
so.
and I was like, you know what? I got another copy. I'm gonna hook you up. So I don't want to throw them.
Well, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate that. That's
Absolutely.
Cool. That's cool.
So
No, they're a great band. I saw them at Black Circle a few weeks ago, and it was great. And like I said, I almost bought the record. So it's great to have it, man. I'm excited. I'm excited to listen to it.
hell yeah. Not vinyl, it's a record. So why a record and not vinyl?
Well, until I don't know, maybe the past 15 years is my guess. Nobody would ever refer to a vinyl. Vinyl is what a record is made out of.
I got you.
I will say though, like in the 90s,
That's good. That's logic. That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah.
in the 90s though, it was common for people would use the word record meaning CD. So like,
Oh wow!
at some point I kind of took that on, and I just referred to it as a record. Like,
See, I didn't know that.
but I mean, I'm not sure that it was, an omnipresent thing or anything like that. But I don't know. So I mean, the term has been there,
Mhm.
But record has stood the test of time.
Although I'm not a snob like some people my age about young people who say vinyls as a noun, because it's just culture changes,
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I'd be more interested in what they're listening to than what they call the format.
Words mean different things in different eras,
Absolutely,
and that's
yeah,
something that
yeah,
a lot of people can't wrap their heads around. Apparently,
Yeah.
yeah.
I lost my lighter already. Of course I did.
I've got one if you need one.
We'll find it here. So where do we start? Eddie.
Yes.
So what inspired you to get into music?
To get into music, well, I've been listening to music since as a small child. But I started seriously, if you want to put it that way, but I started really being interested in music and listening to music, following music when I was like about 10 years old, which would have been 1967. So there was a lot of good stuff around. Yeah, my older brother had lots of cool records. A lot of people, everybody. See, that's the thing in the '60s. Like, it was really easy to have good taste because just wasn't much bad music around.
Right.
I think without, you grow up when you're born, but I think there was a real advantage to being born at a certain point if you're interested in rock music, at least the rock music I care about. And I was, so, but I was a listener, as a child for a few years. And then I started writing about music when I was 14. And I guess it would have been 1972. I discovered the world of fanzines around 1970, which is around the time that rock fanzines as a discrete thing really kicked off. Before that, fanzines were basically it was the world of science fiction or comic books. And around 1970, there became a scene, if you want to call it that. There was no scene because it was just people connected around the world through the mail. But there became a thing of like people doing amateur publications, fanzines, talking about rock music. At first, it was mostly 1950s rock and roll, but I discovered that pretty early on, and it like really changed me because I was already into rock music. I was telling Jacob as we were driving up here, even a couple years before I started writing for fanzines, I wrote reviews myself just on my own. Just, I don't know why. I liked the writers that I read, and I guess I wanted to be like them. Maybe I was practicing without thinking about practicing. So anyway, I started writing about it when I was 14. Did that for a while, and then we can talk about that endlessly. It probably won't mean anything to you guys at all.
Oh
so
no,
we
you
can-
don't
so-
understand, man. What's happening right now started because I started doing zines.
Yeah. Oh,
Like
cool,
that's my
cool.
bread and butter.
Yeah.
So I did it for whatever, like 5 years.
Well, okay. I mean, I'll go into a little detail because some of it's interesting. In 1972, as I was telling Jacob coming up here, the first fanzine I wrote for, I grew up in a small town in southern Alabama. So I grew up in total fucking isolation. There was no music. There was no nothing. It was a dry county. There was a roller rink and a movie theater and bowling alley and nothing else. So, so I was doing all this in isolation. So in 1972, after I discovered fanzines and all that, as I saw things, the first thing I ended up doing was a fanzine that was actually then based in New Paltz, New York, which I think is upstate, maybe. But it was by a guy from the Bronx named Andy Chernoff, who a couple years after he did a fanzine called Teenage Wasteland Gazette, which is the first thing I was in. And a couple years after that, he formed a band called the Dictators, who were like kind of the first sort of proto-punk band in New York City after the Dolls, if you want to count them as proto-punk. They were the band like that Richard Meltzer, who is a rock writer and has a lot of connections to a lot of these bands and wrote wrote lyrics for Blue Oyster Cult and many other things. I remember him saying the Dictators are the band before the Ramones. So anyway, I guess I'm just giving context about the guy who did the
And I
fanzine.
know at one point in history there was kind of a debate, like, did the Ramones kind of like steal from the Dictators?
The Ramones definitely took some stuff from the Dictators. Yeah, for sure. I mean, like the Dictators covered California Sun, the Ramones covered California Sun. The Dictators sort of theme song, Master Race Rock, has a passage in which it's like, hey, ho, let's go, which is
No shit.
Blitzkrieg Bop.
Yeah. Holy shit.
And they became good friends right away. So, it's more like kindred spirits, but obviously, one had a record out a year before the other one. So, so the Dictators came first, and they were a different sort of band too musically. They were closer to they were produced by Blue Oyster Cult's producers. So in a way, musically, they were closer to like early heavy metal, So it wasn't stripped down what you think of as punk rock. But in 1975, it's like what a lot of people considered punk rock. The term was already used even then for the Dictators and a few other things. So
do you have a favorite Dictator song?
I don't know. I mean, the first album, which is called The Dictators Go Girl Crazy, is the one. They made 3 albums. The second one's kind of disappointing. The third one's pretty good. The first one's just kind of classic because they were taking sort of like Blue Oyster Cult type music and writing lyrics that were very absurd. It was almost like jokes delivered deadpan. So, there's no, honestly, that's what I've always thought punk rock was. It's just sort of like, if they were yucking it up while they were doing this, it would be like novelty music. But because it's delivered like straight ahead, it takes on a seriousness, which I really like, I guess it's more like irony versus like slapstick or something,
Mhm.
I don't know where all that was going, but anyway, yeah. So I was writing for fanzines and I wrote for different ones here and there. And in 1974, I visited Bloomington for the first time. I was 16, almost 17. And there was a guy there, Bob Richard, who was doing a fanzine. And I wrote for it. And so did a guy in upstate New York named Kenny Hyland, who had his own teenage fanzine called Rock On that I also wrote for. A lot of this was like, that was kind of how people met or how people were like doing stuff, it was kind of this like loose knit network that was it would often be promoted in like kind of more mainstream magazines like Rolling Stone or Cream or whatever. So there'd be people who would write about fanzines and then give addresses. And it's where a lot of people kind of connected, just writing somebody because they're interested in a band that you are, and nobody else in your hometown cares about this band. So you start writing back and forth. And then eventually some of those people start doing fanzines and writing for each other's fanzines. And, I mean, basically what punk rock was a few years later, So came up here in 74, came to Bloomington in 74, as did Kenny Highland, coming down from upstate New York, Brockport, New York, to hang out with this guy, Bob Richard, who was doing a fanzine in Bloomington called Beyond Our Control. So we did that. Everybody went their separate ways. Well, me and Kenny hitchhiked to Chicago, which was crazy, as a young, naive Alabama boy who didn't know anything. It seemed pretty extreme, but it was lots of fun. Yeah. And then so about a year later, I came back to Bloomington. Kenny by that time was living there, and Bob had done a fanzine, had done some college radio publications, so he really knew what he was doing. So he decided he was going to start a magazine, and that was called Gulcher. The Bloomington is its nickname, which most people don't seem to know.
I did not know that.
Occasionally they do, is the Gulch.
Hmm.
So the magazine was Gulcher.
Any idea how that name came about? I never heard that.
Yeah, I haven't either.
Well, I mean, just because, it's really fucking confusing because Richard Meltzer, who I've already mentioned, was a rock writer and wrote lyrics for Blue Oyster Cult and had a punk band named called Vom and many other things. He had a book called Gulcher that came out in 1972. And I remember when Bob was saying, well, I'm going to call the magazine Gulcher. It's like, well, that's kind of weird because there's this book in our world called Gulcher, has nothing. And it's like, yeah, but it's the Gulch. And it's like, okay, I'm not going to argue about it.
What is the book Gulcher? What is that?
That's the writer Richard Meltzer. It's the subtitle is called something like Post-Rock Pluralism 1684 to like 1976. So ancient and then beyond the date at which the book actually came out. And the whole kind of, you could say kind of theoretical basis of the book was that rock and roll is played out. Rock and roll is done. It's just,
and that was written
1972.
Wow.
It's just bullshit. It's all been done. So it's time to explore other avenues. So that the book is like each chapter is talking about something that's not specifically rock and roll. Occasionally it's kind of tangentially related to rock and roll, but like there's one chapter on collecting bottle caps. There's there's a lot of chapters on many things, but it's all written in a style which is kind of hard to explain if you haven't read him. It's I remember when I first read him in about 1970 in a newsstand magazine called Circus, which was a rock magazine.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, like, what's wrong with this guy? This guy's stupid. But I mean, is he mentally retarded? What's going on? And then I remember rereading the piece again, and it's like, well, no, it's funny. And as I reread it, it's like, oh, this guy's really, really smart. But I don't quite get it all yet because I'm like 13 or whatever. And then eventually I find out like he went to Yale and his first book was this insanely complicated book called The Aesthetics of Rock, which was his college thesis, which is both based on like Greek philosophy and rock and roll and how they relate. But unless you know all that, you can read it. But I was talking to somebody once who actually was a philosophy major, and they were like, yeah, even if you know all this stuff, this book is like insane. Like he said, you might as well just start at the back and read to the beginning. It'll mean just as much as but there's lots of footnotes in it, and the footnotes are great. They're just really funny, and sometimes they're anecdotes about rock stuff. And anyway, he insanely influential rock writer if you're in that world.
I'm gonna check that out.
He was sort of the first guy to write about rock music seriously without it being like a teen magazine, like without it being connected to like music business hype, you
Mhm.
know, to actually write about it like you're writing about art, you know.
Yeah.
But in his case, it like read totally the opposite. Like it's something he could give a shit about, you know. So in that way, he's like not only sort of the first rock writer, but he's sort of like kind of a proto punk sort of guy because it was like everything's kind of tongue in cheek. Everything's kind of like, well, you know, fuck the world. You know, none of this really matters, but yet we're going to write about it and at least take some of it seriously. Most of it not, but you know, good luck figuring out which is which is the serious part and which is not. So he was kind of a trickster sort of fellow, you know.
Hmm.
So anyway,
Yeah, I'm
but
check that out for
yeah,
sure.
but back to Gulcher, the magazine, not the book. So I came to Bloomington in 1975, about a year after my first visit, to edit the first issue of Gulcher. I would have been 17 at that point. And it was a professionally done thing. It really wasn't a fanzine anymore because it was, you know, offset printed. It was had ads in it. I mean, uh, and that that's one of those things. I hate the word proud, but that's one of the things I'm very happy about having done in my life. And among the things I like about it, looking back on it especially, is like I just decided to ask the writers that I cared the most about to write for. And they did. I mean, Richard Meltzer wrote for it. Lester Bangs wrote for it. We got stuff from Cub Coda, who had a band called Brownsville Station,
Moto.
who we were really into.
Oh yeah.
Uh, so anyway, Mike Saunders wrote for it. He was a guy at that point who still wrote for Rolling Stone. I think he was still writing for it then. But in L.A. in the late '70s, he formed a band called the Angry Samoans, who were like one of the first hardcore bands. So, you know, all this stuff's kind of overlaps and anticipates each other and
Man,
double backs on each other.
yeah, I did not know this about you. This is really cool stuff. I love zines, so hearing about all this is like, whoa.
I remember, so in the '90s, even I know like zines were like a big thing. I feel like I was kind of, zines have been a thing in my time, but just, I feel like it was,
Oh yeah.
the further back you go, I feel like it must have been like a more important thing to the people involved.
Well,
know?
there just wasn't that much of it to
Yeah.
begin with. That's one of it was, you know, before punk, it was so easy to stand out in the tiny underground there was because there were so few people, you know. So, which kind of ties into like, so a year after I helped do that first issue of Gulcher, I came back a third time. At this point, I would have been 18, 1976, kind of what, March of 76, I think. And okay, backtrack a little bit. Kenny Highland, who was the guy who first visited Bloomington at the same time as I did in 1974, he had been living in Bloomington at that point for about a year. He was also a writer, had written for Gulcher. He was sick of everything. He was sick of Bloomington, sick of rock and roll, sick of everything except he joined the Marines. He joined the U.S. Marine Corps, which I thought was insane, and told him. But in the meantime, Bob Richard, the guy who had done Gulcher magazine, said, "Hey, Kenny, before you go in the Marines, you have these tapes, and I really like these songs. Would it be okay if I did a record?" And Kenny was like, "No, no, no, no. Let's don't do that. Let's like put together some people I know, and we'll have a band, and we can use a couple of my songs, and then I can get a couple of these people to write a song." And that became the Gizmos.
Right on.
Just sort of instant band too. It was like, so Kenny already knew me, so he recruited me. I had never been in a band or, you know, I mean, when Kenny and I first met in 1974, we wrote a couple songs together. Just, you know, and actually we pretended we had a band called the Rockabilly Yobs.
The Rockabilly Yobs.
So like, I got to ask though, like, so you've so far you've talked about your, you know, your zine
Yep.
journey, but like, so like, At what point did you think, oh well, I'm going to sing, or
When
what gave you the
when Kenny was putting together the people to be on what became the Gizmos record,
Oh, okay.
he just asked me,
Okay.
like, "Do you want to be on the Gizmos record?" And it's like, "Of course I do."
Hell yeah.
And then it turned out I could actually sing a little bit when we got in the studio. Who knew? You know.
Hell yeah.
So I sang lead on one song. It was all very weird. It was like I co-wrote a couple of the songs, sang background on a couple of the songs, sang lead on one. There was various people in it as well. There was a guy named Ted Nemick who was an IU student. And he got asked to be in it because he had been a fan of Gulcher magazine and then contacted Bob and Kenny. And Kenny and him had got together, and Ted had a song called Muff Divin' USA, which was set to the music of Chicago's Saturday in the Park. Is that what it's called? I wish it was the 4th of July, whatever.
Yep.
And Kenny was like, no, let's rewrite it like a Stooges song. So Kenny rewrote it and changed the chorus to Muff Divin' in Wilkie South. And Wilkie South was the dorm Ted lived in. So that was his song. And then for the band, Kenny had somehow met these guys from northern Indiana, from this little town called Highland, which is right next to Gary. And so they became kind of the core band of it. I didn't play anything. Ted didn't play anything at that point. So we needed a band. Kenny played guitar. So that became the band. And then there was this one guy who was just recruited as just a background singer for reasons that I probably shouldn't say on the air. Is this the air? On a podcast? So,
Yeah, a broadcast.
It's something like, the person that this all relates to probably wouldn't care, but, I mean.
Is it because he was a good muff diver?
It was good. No, it was the person I'm talking about, hoping he was the opposite of that.
Ah, gotcha.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I mean, I could just say it because it's not a secret. Bob Richard, who ran Gulcher Records, is gay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why this other guy. And,
fair enough.
And as it turned out, the other guy said, no, thanks. So we had this background singer was just, that's the only reason he was there, which, just made it a little weirder.
A little more punk rock.
There wasn't even punk rock yet. The Ramones record wasn't out. I mean, we weren't calling it punk rock. We weren't calling it anything except rock and roll.
Yeah.
I mean, we were into the MC5 and the Stooges and the Velvet Underground and the Dolls and like early heavy metal, Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin. Me and Kenny were really into 50s rockabilly and then 60s garage rock. It was just, it was really the stuff that was kind of the record collector world at the time, the fanzine world, the underground, the sort of, the kids in your town who you hate because you don't understand who they are. We were those guys. It's like we were into music. Everybody else, they didn't hate it because they didn't know it existed. Mm-hmm. So we were those people, So
they're mad because they can't wrap their mind around you, kind of.
They don't eat. Well, I don't know if they're mad or bitter or don't care or I don't know, man. I was always a total fucking outsider. So
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And by the time I was like 16 or so, I didn't care. Actually, I mean, really and truly, from the time I was 10. See, when I was 10, I remember like I had double digits. So it's like, okay, now I'm a teenager. So now I listen to rock music because I'm a teenager. It was the 1960s. It was just, teenagers listen to rock music. So I did.
And I feel like that same thing kind of even when I was like, first discovering Nirvana, I was like, yeah, that's what teenagers do.
Now,
I don't play with toys anymore.
Right.
I buy records now.
So, but anyway, from around the time I was 10 or so, my real goal in life was to get the fuck out of Jackson, Alabama. It was like, I hate this place. I don't want to be here. I want to be.
So why did you hate it?
I want to be on TV with the rock guys, fucking I Dream of Jeannie and Bewitched.
But why did you hate it? Like,
it was just an uptight little town where there was nothing there.
Mm-hmm.
It was very racist. I mean, very superficially and it was racist in the way pretty much everywhere it was in the South. People didn't really hate black people. It's just what they did,
Yeah.
and I wasn't, so I was an oddball. Also,
I'm glad you got the fuck out of there. Fuck that shit.
yeah, I mean, it took me till I was about 22 to get out permanently, but I was making trips. That's part of the reason as soon as I could go somewhere, which ended up to be Bloomington, Indiana, of all places. It's like, yeah. I mean, I remember when I first got to Bloomington, it's like, oh my God, this is amazing. There's record stores. Where I grew up, there was no record stores. You could buy records at like the supermarket or drugstores, especially in the 60s. It's like almost every store of any size had a record bin.
Yeah.
Because everybody could sell the latest Beatles record or whatever it was.
Elvis.
Yeah. Well, Elvis was still around. It's after Elvis, but
Yeah.
I mean, after Elvis was good, but sure. Yeah. But yes. I mean, Elvis was beloved in the South.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, yeah. I mean, everybody talks about, how he was so divisive and everything. I don't think in the South he was ever like that. Everybody's grandmother loved Elvis. Everybody loved Elvis because he was a poor Southern boy who made good. It was like he was kind of a role model in a way. So
My grandmother loved Elvis. She that was the one celebrity she told me. She bawled her eyes out the day he died.
yeah, but your grandma is probably only 10 or 15 years older than me, right? I don't know. I'm not sure.
I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah.
I think she was born in the 40s.
My mom is.
Oh, okay. That's
my
older than
mom
me.
is actually 5 years older than you.
Older. Yeah.
Yeah.
Born in 52.
No, she's 3 years older than you.
I was born in 57.
My dad was born in 49.
Oh, okay.
Oh
Yeah.
no, my mom was born in 49. My dad was born in 39.
Oh, so like about 8, 9, 10 years older.
Mhm.
Yeah. 57. Yeah.
I got old parents. They waited to have me.
I was the same way. My
That's the way to do it.
my
though, I
dad
think.
was 42 when I was born, and my mom was 35. So I kind of like that though now, because it's like through my family, sort of looking at that as an extension of me, like, in a way, my life, considering the life of my parents, my dad was born in 1914. So I feel like there's a lot of fucking perspective.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and I grew up close enough to World War II. I mean, 20 years, I mean, what? No, 12 years removed. But when I was growing up, like, that was still kind of in the air, because there were so many people who went through it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you heard talk about that all the time. It was just common. And the Depression.
Mhm.
It was just, I almost feel in ways like I lived through this thing.
But,
I obviously didn't, and I didn't get any of the bad stuff of that. But, it's just, and I like that. I've always been interested in history. So, yeah.
That's a common thing that I don't think a lot of people realize, is that obviously you felt the aftermath of World War II more intensely than
Mhm.
we did. But like the thing is, like, the effects of like major events like that carry on
For a long time.
lot longer than people realize.
I mean, it still
like-
is.
It's like one of my most favorite books is The History of Western Philosophy by Bertrand Russell, and the lesson I learned from that book is that, this event occurred 100 years before this person's birth, so this person's a little bit biased by this event, and that's true.
Oh, yeah.
And like I think a lot of people, they don't understand that, just like there's subtle things that affect your consciousness.
Oh yeah.
In such a way that, like, you don't understand. You may think you're the most objective thinker in the world, but you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By any measure.
My grandmother, my grandma Shepler, she was a hoarder.
Uh-huh.
And when I just remember being young and thinking to myself, like, man, why does she do this? Why does she walk around and pick stuff up and save things? Why does she save everything? Why does she have like collections of quarters and dimes and nickels prior to 1964? And it was because she grew up through the Depression.
Oh, yeah.
And to have anything
Yes.
was everything.
And I've been surrounded by those people my whole life.
Mhm.
I'm sure that you know more than just. You said that was your
my grandma Shepler. Yeah.
Okay, but you must have other people that that.
Yes,
similar
absolutely.
experience. Yeah, because there are people in my family that save like shit you shouldn't save at all. You know,
Yeah.
like,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
so-
Absolutely.
and their house is, you know, it's more like they're hoarders almost. You know,
Hmm. Yeah. I
So-
mean, the perspective is different based on, you know, when you lived. And like my uncle Bud on my mother's side, he served in World War II and he was stationed in Hawaii. So, you know, whatever, what was it, December 3rd, 1942, he was on one of those ships.
It is
And
December 7th, 41.
thank you. So,
Oh.
and you know, one of those kamikaze planes crashed into the ship next to his, and it, you know, he lost his part of his face and just a complete, you know, I'd love to have him on a podcast. He passed
That's
away.
who?
My uncle Bud on my mother's
Wow.
side. But that perspective, you know, people are so, like you said, the way that they do things is so different based on how, you know,
Yeah.
how they
Mhm.
grew up and stuff like that.
Right.
So
For
But-
sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Or it might have been December 7th, 1940. I
I
can't remember now.
I don't
It's
know.
Either, it's either 40
Yeah.
or 41.
I don't know why my brain told me December 4th, 1942, but
Yeah. I mean, you know.
yeah. But
numbers, man.
so the Gizmos, you like you were saying, you started, so you were singing with them.
Yeah. So we got together in March of 76, recorded 6 songs. Those came out, I mean, 4 of those came out, I think, in, I don't know, September of that year, something like that. So I remember we were kind of bummed out because after it had happened, we realized, like, well, the Ramones album came out. It's kind of what I'm saying. It's like, oh, if we'd only been on the ball a little more, we might have got it released before the Ramones. Because the Ramones album, when it came out, for those paying attention, was like, things just changed. It seemed that radical at the time. It was so much unlike anything else. There were things that had hinted at it, you know, like the Dictators, or actually like the first Jonathan Richman stuff that came out in 1975. It kind of hinted in that direction. I'm saying Richman because kind of the lyrical content and also his music was so stripped down, like he didn't have guitar solos. And I remember that was one of the strange things about the Ramones. There's no guitar solos. Well,
Mhm.
that was kind of unthinkable in rock music before that.
Which
you
is
know?
crazy because I mean, for me, like when I first heard the Ramones, I was like, "This is so obvious." I was like, because I spent a lot of time being like annoyed by guitar solos. I'm like, do we need to show off for 2 minutes here? Can't we just like get to the rest of the song? Like,
Keep it to
Yeah.
16
So, like,
minutes.
well,
Come on.
so like when I first heard it, I'm like, why is this the only band that understands that this is what we're going for? Like,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
the songs hit me harder, and it was like, and as I was recently talking to someone else, it's like if you have songs that are that simple, you have to have a damn good melody going. So they for fucking four consistent records, they fucking nailed that, man. Like strong melodies, you know. Hard to do. It's very hard to do.
Oh yeah.
It's very hard to write songs like that.
There-
And
By the way, thank you, Daniel. December 7th, 1941, gentlemen.
Oh, okay. I was right the first time then. Hey,
that's the date for what?
And then have that's
that's a friend of mine.
D-Day. The day that
No, D-Day. No.
not D-Day.
That's the beginning. That's when the U.S. entered World War II.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The war started in
Oh, man.
39.
That
but-
fucking ruined Christmas that year.
yeah,
that sucks.
I would think so.
yeah, they had just signed a treaty with Japan. Just signed a treaty, and then boom, they attacked Pearl Harbor. So
And
yep.
Oh, Pearl Harbor, right?
Yep.
Which is the reason. Yes.
And then Hef
F quotes the Ramones.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, I don't want to go down to the basement.
Yep.
That's
I don't
also
either.
that's a
I don't
Teenage
either.
Bottle Rocket song too.
And you know, I will say my grandparents had the most frightening basement in the history of basements, so I understood that song.
Oh yeah. So yeah, we were talking. Yeah, where were we?
I guess in my story, we're up to the Gizmos EP being released
Mm-hmm.
in kind of the fall of '76, I think. I think once I kind of mentioned this earlier in some context, is like because there wasn't a lot going on because it wasn't 1977 yet. The deluge had not happened. The explosion had not happened. Anything that was out there that was kind of punk rock or whatever it might have been called at the time got noticed, and we got noticed. We were reviewed in Cream magazine.
I saw that.
You know,
That's dope.
we made the alternative charts in the UK in Sounds magazine, which was one of their music weeklies. I think it was between Alex Chilton and the Saints in their like top 10 one week. So we got noticed, you know, it was cool. So as a result, that first EP, Bob Richard sold out of the first pressing. So it sold 1,000 copies.
Nice.
So he did another 1,000 and also decided like, well, there should be a second record because like people were actually buying these things. So that's why we got together again, like about a year later. It might have been April of '77, something like that. By which point, Kenny Highland had joined the Marines. I had just gone back to Alabama. I always just went back to Alabama after these trips to Bloomington. I never lived in Bloomington.
How long did you stay in Bloomington at a time?
Up to about 6 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
You were staying with friends.
I was staying at Bob Richards' apartment,
Okay.
wherever he was living at the time, usually just sleeping on
Was
the
it what?
floor.
Where
so-
was that in Bloomington, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't know.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I thought about it at times. It's like I should ask Bob the addresses of the places we were at, so we could just like drive by there and it's like, oh, that's where we stayed.
Do you remember going to Kirkwood in those days?
Was
Kirkwood a thing?
I would have been aware of Kirkwood, but even though I was there 4 different times, I don't have a great. It's weird. I have a really bad sense of direction, and I kind of have a bad sense of place. I don't have a great.
I have the same.
I don't have a
thing.
great spatial sense, so I tend to notice people, or I notice music, and a lot of times I don't know what the fuck's going on around me.
Mhm.
You know, it's just
Well, it's like
I'm so inside my head, which is not necessarily great, but it's true. You know,
well,
But-
it's,
yeah.
I just want to make a real quick comment.
it's
Like,
cool.
so, like, one of the books, another book I read that was, I guess, kind of meaningful is I read an Alexander Hamilton biography, which turned out to be the basis for the Hamilton play. But like one of the, he had a very interesting life story. But like one of the interesting things that the writer mentioned is that, like, because the writer had written biographies on a handful of different people, and he commented that, you know, there's certain people who, when you look at their journals, they comment on, like you said, ideas, people. They don't mention
Oh, right.
they don't mention physical objects.
Yeah,
ever.
or necessarily even where they're at.
Right.
Right.
So it's just, you know, it's one of those insights into how different brains work different, you know.
Yeah.
Different brains operate differently. You know?
I think so. Yeah. I think a lot of, for want of a better word that doesn't sound obnoxious, but it's sort of like what the intellectual way of looking at
Mhm.
things. You tend to look at ideas as
Yeah.
much as you look at what's really happening. I don't know. I think for as a writer, and you know, and I think for art in general, I think you have to be sort of like living in your own head a
Yeah.
lot and
Yeah.
analyzing what's going on around you, whether you're conscious of it or not.
Sort of like I noticed, like, some of the best songwriters are people that can't get a song out of their head.
Mm.
And I know even for me, like whenever I write bass parts or whatever I'm doing, it's because I got the song in my head.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I got it for 8. I'm not listening to Q95 in my car. I'm quiet. Okay. I need to think. And so the songs are going in my head, and I don't know. When you have a song in your head, you think, oh well, you develop new melodies within the song. And like that's kind of how I've come to think about writing parts for music or
Oh
whatever.
yeah,
But
I got you.
but I noticed like I've met a handful of like great songwriters in my time, and they're always like walking around
Mhm.
humming a tune,
Yeah,
singing a song.
I always bring up that Michael Jackson song. Which one was it? Billie Jean. That bass line.
Uh-huh.
When he came up with that, he was in his car. He was driving somewhere, and he was like freaking out because he had this thing in his head. He had to get to like a piano or something, and it's boom 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 boom. So yeah,
It's so subtle but so good.
right there.
Like
Yeah. What is your writing process like, Eddie?
Well, writing songs, most of the time, the good ones just kind of come to me, really. But saying that, like with Heavy Mother, which is my current band, a couple of the songs on our album, there's a song called Government Phone, which was, I was bitching about my Obama phone from California, which, Obama phone is slang from when he was still in office, and he was the one that made it so anybody that's poor in the country can get a free phone. They're garbage. There's no memory. They're shitty. So anyway, I was bitching about that, and it was one of my bandmates. I think it was our bass player Chode, or Zach Warcell, his real name. I think it was him. It said you should write a song about that. So I did. Sometimes that can work too. Like here's here's an idea, and sometimes that's pretty good. What I can't do very well is just on my own sit down and it's like, okay, I'm going to write a song. It's almost impossible
I feel
for
like
me.
that's not the way it should work anyway. But
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So usually they just either come to me. I don't know.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's reading something or whatever. I mean, I have had songs just with. I had a band in L.A. called Crawl Space, and I remember one day I woke up and I wrote like the lyrics to a song, like the entire song. Just I don't know from what, and I didn't change a word. And I was like, wow, that's
Yeah.
kind of crazy and I don't even know what the song was exactly about, but it was like, wow, was it a dream I was having? I don't know.
I think it's because we all participate in a collective consciousness.
Well, that's one of those theories.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The muse, the external inspiration,
Yeah, because
I don't really believe any of that, but I'm willing to entertain it. I mean, it's a cool idea,
Yeah.
I like cool ideas.
I always say that art is basically depicted by your surroundings, and your surroundings are depicted in your art. And
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Orange County, you guys ever heard of that film?
yeah.
No.
That's about the college.
Yep.
Okay.
He's like trying to get into Stanford.
Yeah.
And the writer that he loves so
Tom
much
Hanks' son.
teaches at Stanford or whichever school. And, the moral of the movie is like, you don't have to move anywhere to be an artist.
Oh no.
Your art is, your surroundings and the people in your life, and that comes out of you. So, which is like a thing like don't move out of Indy, like don't move out of Bloomington,
Well,
don't move out of your home.
I moved to LA when I was 22 and spent almost 40 years there, like before I realized it's like, why the fuck am I here?
How long were you in LA?
39 years.
39 years. When did you move back to Bloomington?
2018. Well, like I was explaining earlier, which is confusing, I never lived in Bloomington. I never really lived in Indiana until 2018.
Okay.
So, I mean, I helped form the first.
It's just your stomping ground.
I helped form the first Indiana punk band, but I never lived here, which I like. I think that's how it should be.
That's dope. That's cool.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
There was this chick that I met when I first got to Bloomington this last time. She had a band, but I won't mention who it was. And she was like, well, that doesn't make sense. That's not fair. And it's like, well, yeah, it's not about that. It's the reality of how it happened. It's like, it's like, okay, I'm not from here, but I was here and we did it here. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Fuck yeah. So how did Crawl Space come about?
well, I after I did all the Gizmo stuff, I just, of course, returned to Alabama once again. Just got down there and got really fucking depressed and got really fat, and I was wondering, was like, okay, what did I exactly accomplish? I have 3 records, but I'm doing nothing. I was still writing, but and by that time I was making a little money doing it. I was not really writing for fanzines. I was writing kind of for these kind of like entertainment weeklies and crap like that, like Nuvo, or in LA, it would have been the LA Weekly, those kind of papers. And they would pay you $15 or $20 for a review. And then also, as a result of that, it kept the promos coming in. So, I was always getting tons of free records. But by then, I'd been doing it for a while too, and I was kind of getting jaded. So, anyway, it would have been in late 1977, I had somehow, through fanzines once again, I'd connected with this chick in LA, actually in the San Fernando Valley, in a uh, town called Canoga Park. It's all fucking LA. Every part of LA is called something else. You know, it's not, it's LA's psychotic. It doesn't, nothing out there makes any sense. Anyway, through fanzines, this girl had contacted me, and she like edited a magazine called Ooh, OOH exclamation point, which was a porn magazine. It was ostensibly a porn review magazine, and it was that so they could like get away with like reprinting like pictures from hardcore fuck magazines you could buy on the newsstands for like $20 or $30, even back then. This is all pre-video, of course. And so they would just do it in black and white and then talk about the movie. In others, they were ripping off content from other magazines and then charging like $3 or $4 for it. They were making very cheap porn, is what they were doing. And so anyway, she was the editor of that, and we started corresponding. Uh, and at some point, well, we were like, I was still a virgin at 20, so I was very excited about this, talking to the porn chick, and we started having phone sex, and which was weird because like I had an extension in my room, and I was always hoping my parents didn't pick it up. This is the old days,
Yeah, back
It's
in the
like
day.
this is the old days,
Like
and
77, right?
as far as I know, they never did. They wouldn't have told me if they did. My parents were great.
Hell yeah.
And so after we did that for a while, she was like, well, okay, you need to come visit. And I did in December of 77. And I went out there and had a lot of fun.
Sounds like it,
I
man.
mean,
Sounds like it.
I was a virgin. She was only, I was 20, but like the maturity of about 15. She was 22 with the maturity of about 45, and, it turned out to be a disaster in the long run because I fell in love with her. Don't fall in love with whores, it's it's just not a good thing to do. Or I should say, I should be technically correct, sluts. Ann, which was a punk band called Vom. Who
Vom.
yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
VOM.
VOM.
Okay.
VOM. I remember like asking Meltzer, it's like, so what does that mean? And it's like, you know, it means whatever
It
you want
means
it to mean.
vom, man.
Yeah. It's like, does it mean vomit? And it's like, whatever, you know. And
I-
I remember the chick I was with.
Not to interrupt you, but I just wanted to give a shout out to Creeping Jeff and Tony Beamer. Thank you guys for fucking letting me know. Sometimes StreamYard cuts out the audio. We lost maybe 20, 30 seconds of our audio there
All right.
for a second. Thank you, Tony Beamer. Thank you, Creeping Jeff. Thank you guys for giving me the heads up on that. So,
Man,
go
that
ahead.
By the
sucks.
way, am I cutting out at all in my headphones occasionally?
Okay.
I don't know if I go off
I don't think
mic.
it's
It's
or-
clean.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
it's clean.
okay.
I just have.
I
you
think
a
I'm hearing
little
the same thing, but
Yeah.
it's not
Right on.
It's not.
Yeah.
Right on.
I'll get you
Yeah.
guys better headphones next time.
So anyway, I mean, the gist of it really is I visited LA in 77 and I was there for a while and then went back for a little while in 78, supposedly live there. And she broke my heart. And I went back to Alabama once again and got even fatter. And,
Man,
I know what you're saying.
and then, but it's still, it's like, okay, I still got to get the fuck out of this town. Somehow I keep winding up back here again, you know, it's like, I got to get out. And so finally, I guess I'm getting into crawl space. It's finally in 1979, Rich Coffey, who was one of the Gizmos guys, he was a guitar player. He and I decided we were going to have a band in LA. So we both moved out there in August of 79. Our band never happened because of various bullshit reasons. It's always something. It was actually a woman. So, you know, and it wasn't like we were both trying to fuck the same woman, nothing like that, but you know, whatever. So I was adrift in LA. Although the first like 3 or 4 years I was out there was mind-blowingly good as a fan because I got out there right as hardcore happened. So there was, and it wasn't even just hardcore. It was like everything you're going to imagine. You could literally for about 3 years, every night of the week, there was a great show and sometimes like half a dozen great shows you could go to, you know, because there was so much going on. It was nuts. It was amazing. It was fucking amazing. I, like I said, hardcore is about to happen. Like the Angry Samoans, who are an offshoot of Richard Meltzer's band Vom, even though they're rarely acknowledged, were definitely one of the first hardcore bands. Then I saw Black Flag with Keith Morris, I think 4 different times.
oh yeah.
I saw, you know, the original lineup of Black Flag. I saw the transition. Like I remember like the Samoans played a show at this place called Blackie's in Hollywood. And like one of the bands on the bill was this new band, the Circle Jerks, with Keith from Black Flag. So it's like, oh wow, he's got a new band. Let's go check it out. And I was like, oh wow, there's like 2 Black Flags now. The guitarist in the Circle Jerks wasn't as good as Greg Ginn, but it was still solid stuff, you know. And it was just, there was so much happening, you know. So I was frustrated that I didn't have a band, but at the same time, I was just, you know, for a little while there having a good time. By about 84, I wasn't really having a good time anymore. I mean, it's Los Angeles. Right now, you can go out there and see stuff. It's just a humongous city. You know? It's endless shit. But by about 84, I don't know. I was burning out and frustrated, and I'm not doing anything. And so some friends of mine, well, they weren't friends when they moved out, but in the Gizmos days in 77, I'd met this guy, Bill McCarter, who was from Vincennes, Indiana. And in 1981, some friends of his from Vincennes moved to LA. And it was 5 dudes, and they had a band called Gloria, which they only played 3 or 4 shows before they broke up. But about a year after they broke up, they reformed with a different drummer and only 1 guitar instead of 2, and became a band called the Lazy Cowgirls, who I see nobody in Indiana seems to know who they are, but they were all Indiana guys, and they were a big deal in LA. And over the years, they became a really big deal in the underground around the world. So I got to be friends with those guys, and like I said, Bill McCarter, who was my link to those guys. So in 1985, two of the guys from the Lazy Cowgirls, Bill and I, decided to form a band. And at first, that was called Big Dad and 10 Pounds of Swinging Meat. But that didn't stick because it's like, well, this is too stupid. So soon we became Crawl Space. And then started playing shows for real, I think in 1987. And then from then on, the band went through many, many changes. I mean, it went on for 30 years. And
The band went on for 30 years?
Yeah.
Wow.
With
that's
many, many
awesome.
changes. I mean, there were lineups which were pretty stable for long periods of time. But, I don't know. There's probably 20 people over that 30 years. So I guess that's not too bad,
Mm-hmm.
But I was the only constant, for the entire time. Again, there were guys who lasted 20 years or more. But anyway, so over that period of time, we released 75 different things.
Wow.
But you have to keep in mind, like at a certain point, we went from we started as kind of I kind of like to say a punkadelic band. It was still, kind of based in punk, or our idea of punk, which was more like the Stooges rather than the Ramones or hardcore. But it was still punk, But then we were all doing a lot of acid, and it was very influenced by like krautrock, like the band Can. We were really into Rocky
Krautrock, is that like a genre?
Yeah.
What is krautrock?
Oh, wow. Krautrock is basically existed from about 1968, 69 obviously in Germany, until, I mean, you could say it's still going on, but really the height of it lasted through kind of the mid 70s. The big bands, which are all now like really well known if you're in a certain world, the biggest was a band called Can, CAN. There's a band called Amandul 2, Cluster, Faust, Tangerine Dream were originally a krautrock band. They became kind of big after they changed their style. The biggest really ultimately that came out of all that was Kraftwerk, who started as kind of a weird psychedelic band and then ditched their drummer and stuff and just became a strictly synthesizer band. So we were really into all that stuff, but especially the band Can, who were, it's really hard to describe a lot of it because it's all different. But maybe the common denominator of a lot of it is kind of electronic based, or not based, but almost every band had a synthesizer. And also a beat. There was a beat to it, which was very almost like robotic, At first, it was just real drummers. Eventually, some of it had drum machines. What is that called? There's a name for it. Motorik. I don't know how you say it. It's Motorik. It means like an engine. It means drumming like an engine.
Mm-hmm.
So really locked in beats. Some of that was kind of influenced by just electronics in general, because you can do this easily. You can suddenly create beats this way. But a lot of it was also like with the band Can, my favorite of all of them. A lot of it is actually influenced by James Brown funk, like really locked in grooves and some African music. So anyway, that's what krautrock is. So
Which
so
I only, by the way, I only recently realized that because my band is doing a new song that's based in funk, and
Leather and Mace.
Scott was telling me,
Scotty.
he was like,
Love Scotty.
he's like, you got to listen to James Brown, man. You got to like study
Hell
those
yeah.
bass lines. So
James Brown is the man.
So I
mean,
did,
yeah.
and like exactly what he's saying. They're locked in. Like it's
Hell yeah.
Oh yeah, I fucking worship James Brown, man. From really from his early days up until like about 1974 or 75, which so that's over a period of like 25 years or something. There's almost nothing bad. I mean, that guy was, you know,
Amazing.
and I really like him, like sort of as a guy who's more like the leader of the band and a lyricist and
Mhm.
everything, rather than a player. James Brown did play. He could play piano and stuff, and he learned kind of basic gospel sort of piano, that sort of stuff. But he, you know, he was more like a band leader, and so he, you know, it's amazing in a way. I mean, you know, he, along with the people who played with him, invented a genre of music, funk. But how it happened is like really strange, and I don't even quite understand really how it happened as much as I've read about it, because it is just, you know, this idea. It's like, well, if you listen to James Brown records from about 1967 on, like he just throws away the basic song form and it becomes about grooves.
Mhm.
And sometimes there are real lyrics, sometimes they're obviously improvised. Sometimes he's literally just calling out the musicians and grunting and yelling, and that's a song. Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, that's where listen to Iggy, listen to Funhouse. It's like all that. That's James Brown. I mean, Funhouse is a funk record.
Get down.
When did James Brown start?
James Brown's first record, I think, it's 1956.
Okay.
It's an R&B record.
Well, I love
Please,
Iggy. Like Iggy's like
yeah. Well,
close to the top for me.
Funhouse is basically James Brown plus John Coltrane. So there's funk, and then on second side they start like bringing in all these free jazz influences,
Mhm.
and they have Steve McKay on saxophone.
You said on the second side.
Yeah, you know,
man, I feel like our generation kind of got cheated. We didn't,
man.
because we didn't have sides like that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So my introduction to James Brown was Rocky IV. Living in America.
That's a great one. I like that. I like.
Hell yeah.
He's past his peak.
That was
but
probably
that's a
near
great
the
track,
yeah,
man.
that was
That's a
probably
great
near the
track.
end for him, right? Or
Oh no, he didn't.
R.I.P.
He didn't.
Apollo.
He didn't end until he died, which was like 15, 20 years ago.
okay.
His funeral was mind blowing. It was broadcast live on CNN, open casket,
Well,
in front of a stage with his band on stage jamming the fuck out of everything, as like Prince and Michael Jackson and all these people come up to the coffin to look over and admire their hero who's like staring up at them. It was insane. It's like it's an
sounds
event.
insane.
It's an event. It's a news event.
I gotta
And
pee real bad.
It was on a couple hours. so.
Actually, on that note, let's go ahead and take a break and hear a word
Right on.
from our sponsor, The Button Guy, and we'll check out some other videos while we're at it. We'll be right back with Eddie and Jacob here in just a moment.
These segments made up in my mind, tormented by the thoughts inside. They're coming like an anaconda, not running. Never take the fall. Every footsteps closing in behind. Surrounded. There's nowhere to hide. Overcoming. Still standing tall. Quit running. I'll let you
Noise.
life to throw away. Are you high? Hello, goodbye. Are you high? Hello, goodbye.
Now, I know I can smoke it on camera, but
Hell yeah.
I guess I am right now, huh?
Yep. Cheers. So we're back with Eddie and Jacob hanging out on a Wednesday night for a midweek crisis. You just saw a little promo for our sponsor, the Button Guy. If you need buttons,
Hey, the button guy's a cool guy, man.
hell yeah, I love Billy. Check out his website, etsy.com/shop/the Button Guy shop. And of course, a little reel of all the midweek crisis over the last 2 years. This is technically our 100th episode.
I kind of regret that I didn't see it, but I had to take a piss.
Oh yeah.
I know that was kind of the point, but man, that sounds cool. That sounds cool. What you said, a
Hell
reel
yeah.
of highlights.
Fuck
of
yeah.
Things.
The bassist of Leather and Mace, Jacob Cagan, in the house. If you haven't seen Leather and Mace, badass fucking band.
Yeah, well,
Featuring one, if not my favorite guitarist in indie, Scotty Burke. Fucking love Scotty. Motherfucking legend on that guitar.
hell yeah, he's an original thinker, man.
Oh yeah.
Got
And
some-
of course, Eddie Flowers in the house tonight. And
Yeah.
Eddie, so as we come back in, I would love to hear how Heavy Mother came about.
Well,
I love Heavy Mother. Just FYI, my
thank you.
favorite Indiana band.
Thank you very
Yes.
much. Well, okay. I moved here in 2018 after losing my mind in LA and being homeless and going crazy. And
Shit, you
living
didn't,
it,
you didn't
living,
touch on homelessness yet.
living in shit. Well, dude, it's a long story. If you want the whole story, I mean,
Let's
we-
go.
we-
Hey,
if
when's
this is gonna be under 2 hours, we ain't gonna get there.
the book coming out, man?
I'm
Oh.
working on it. I'm up to, let's see.
I would be reading that.
I'm
for
up
sure.
to almost. Oh, I'm up to the 90s. So I'm only
90
got
pages.
I've only got 30 years to go. I don't know.
up to the 90s in your life. Okay. I got it.
Yeah.
I got it.
But there's gonna be some other stuff in it. It's gonna be kind of memoir, autobiography, but then reprints of some reviews, some photos, some art. If I can fit it all in, it might be too big. I don't know. It's if he's still into it. It's been 3 years since he spurred me on to do this, but Todd Novak at Hozak in Chicago told me 3 years ago he would publish it. So, hey Todd,
I'll buy one.
I'm
in.
I'm approaching something like the end, but I'm not there anyway.
Well, you know,
yet.
but I appreciate that you keep going because I think that for myself, like the older I get, I'm always looking to those people that are like 20, 30 years out there for me. And I'm like, I'm watching what they're doing. I'm like, it's good to have inspiration.
Absolutely.
You know,
And showing that
Thanks,
love and
thanks,
respect.
thanks.
Fuck yeah.
So anyway, I moved to Bloomington in 2018 after
30 years in LA.
everything, 40
Mm.
years almost, 39 years in LA. From the time I was 22 till I was 61. Hey, yeah. So I moved to Bloomington. I already said it. And 6 years ago, and then of course, I wanted to get together a band, and I met somebody pretty quickly, Mark McWhorter, who was he has been in a band called the Cowboys, which I'm sure a lot of Hoosiers know about. They're
Mhm.
a really happening band. It's been around.
I
for-
saw them open up for No Bunny. up here.
Yeah, the guy from No Bunny was in the Cowboys for a minute. Yeah, they had two guitarists for a minute, and then Mark quit, and then he was whatever. But anyway, so I met Mark, who played in Cowboys, and at the time he was in a band in Bloomington called ABC Gum, and we just kind of hit it off. I don't know. We were both like kind of, he's like mid-30s now, I guess, so much younger, but we're both like kind of cranky and very, I mean, I love Bloomington, but very kind of non-Bloomington sort of, I mean, not PC or whatever you want to call it. I mean, so we started talking about let's write some songs together, and it's like, yeah, I mean, when I came in here, I wanted to do a band, and I think it was in 2018 we got together a group, and I think we only jammed once, and then just kind of petered out. Nothing happened. Mark was very busy. He was in two bands, Uh, and then I think we tried to do it again in kind of during the pandemic, and it was okay. I mean, the lineup we had is pretty good, but one of the guys, Connor Martin, who still has a thing called Skull Cult, he was playing with us, and he decided to move to Indy. So it's like, well, fuck. I mean, okay, this lineup is not going to happen. So it's a pandemic, and nothing's happening. There's nowhere to play anyway. So finally, at the beginning of 2021, we got together a lineup, and I think I was calling it Heavy Mother almost all the way along. So I don't think I told the story. I told Jacob, I know earlier. It's like, well, that first fanzine that I talked about, Teenage Wasteland Gazette, that I wrote for when I was 14. What I wrote about was Teenage Wasteland Gazette was kind of a satirical thing. Almost everything in there was like either sort of fake bands or like fake stuff about real bands, and it was kind of an in joke and this and that and whatever. It was very influenced by Richard Meltzer. Once again, the name, if you know me well, will come up many, many times because he's a huge influence. But anyway, what I wrote about in Teenage Wasteland Gazette was a fictional Alabama biker rock band called Heavy Mother. And so in 2018, I'm pretty sure it was 2018, I was talking about it on Facebook. It's like, I need a name. I don't, I'm trying to put together a band, and a guy on there who knew my background, he's like, why don't you call it Heavy Mother? And it's like, oh yeah, it's too fucking perfect. I mean, it's like something that came up when I was a teenager, and it sounds cool, and nobody's ever used it. And it's like, so anyway, and then the beginning of 2021, we got together a lineup that was pretty good. We started writing songs, actually practiced for quite a while because you still couldn't play out yet. I think that's kind of started to change in the summer of 2021. And we had a bass player. Okay, so it was me, Mark McCorder on guitar, and the guy I really wrote songs with too. Then there is a drummer, Clark Joyner, who's really great. He has he's been playing for a long time and he's a great drummer, but the only thing that significant that people might know, and I don't even know his other bands before us really, except he played in the original lineup, and I don't even know how to say the name of the thing. It's this chick in Chicago called Circuit Dayou. Circuit DEYEUX. I think it's Circuit Dayou. Anyway, so I'm just trying to give him some. I'm just going
Circuit
to. I'm just giving
part two.
I'm just giving no DE like of. So it means circuit of. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
So anyway, hey Clark. I'm just trying to tell our story a little bit,
Yeah.
And then the bass player we had for a little while was this guy Will Staler, who had been in ABC Gum with Mark McCorder. He'd had a band before that, kind of a power pop band called Purple 7. And yeah. So anyway, but he left. And so Mark, I mean, we were all good friends. Mark was kind of like weirdly stoked and was like, why are you so excited that our bass player's left? It's because he's like, oh, because I have the guy that I want to play bass with us anyway. And it was the bass player from the Cowboys, his band that, his better known band, who's Zach Warcell, or as everybody knows him, Chode, or the Chode. So he joined us, and it was like, it just clicked. And wrote songs, and I think our first shows were in the summer 2021. I think that sounds right.
I first saw them in April, I think, of 2022.
Okay,
You guys are playing with Potty Mouth. And I was
yeah.
I was there to see Potty Mouth.
I was there
at the Bishop.
And-
yeah.
Oh no, not the Bishop, but have you played up here, Heavy Mother?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I've seen you guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, we played over here quite a bit. So yeah.
I was thinking of the.
Almost always at State Street Pub. I mean,
Mm,
a couple other shows. We played a house show once, and then I always forget the name of it. I don't know if it's still there. What was the place? It's like I never know in Indianapolis where anything's at, but it was like it looked like some old garage or something.
oh, fifth quarter. Oh no, not fifth quarter. The
Oh.
further.
I don't know.
Hmm.
Had a weird name. Whatever. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But we played there, and anyway, we played up here a lot.
Hell yeah.
So anyway, we started playing lots of shows, and I guess 2022. It had to be. We decided we need to record, and Mark just had a 4-track cassette, so we recorded everything to that, and then he mixed and did some guitar overdubs to his computer and got that all together, and our album came out. Well, he fucking moved to Mexico City in November of that year. Whatever. I mean, it fucked me up, but I love the guy, so whatever.
That was in 2022.
Yeah. And then the album came out the next month, December 2022.
Okay.
On Feel It Records, who are now based in Cincinnati. Really cool store. They have a store there too. So anyway, that's the Heavy Mother thing. We did a cassette, the same lineup that we'd recorded before Mark left town, that came out, I don't know, something like April of 2023. And then we've had another guitarist for a while who didn't quite, well, he was actually really good, Pete, but I don't know, he was very busy. So we were turning down too many shows. And I don't know, about a year ago, we recruited this really young guy, Kellen Baker, who's only 22, who had been in a band for Fort Wayne called Namen, who didn't really, I mean, they released a couple things, and played a lot. They actually toured and shit. But then they broke up, and he moved to Indy. So he's our guitarist now. And that's kind of where we're at. Well, not really. Well, where we're at right now is just a couple weeks ago, a friend of mine from Ottawa, Canada, Joe Shimandi, came down. He has a really cool band called the Retail Simps, who seem to be pretty well known in the underground. I never know what any of this stuff means anymore. They've done a couple records for Total Punk, which is based down in Florida. Really, really well-known label, seems to be. So anyway, he came down to Bloomington for some business stuff, and he said, "Hey, let's record some stuff while I'm down here." And it's like, so okay. And so I got recruited all my band, and we get then Craig Bell, who lives in Indy. Craig Bell,
Fucking love Craig.
yeah, okay, you know Craig.
Cleveland rocks, baby.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fucking legend. I mean, I was in the Gizmos, but Craig's a legend. He was in Rocket from the Tombs, is
Mhm.
who you can make an argument for.
You can
is
see
like
his vinyl right behind me.
just
here.
about as early sort of proto punk band as there is.
Oh yeah.
After the Stooges and all that stuff, yeah, and Mirrors, another band from Cleveland, even earlier than that. Anyway, I've been friends with Craig for about 10 years. So I recruit him. And then there's another fellow, Jordan Allen, who was just kind of hanging around, but ended up playing on guitar. We recorded for 2 days a couple weeks ago. It's, I guess, where I'm going here. So that was the people who ended up. There's different lineups on different tracks and stuff. Anyway, we're calling it Heavy Mother 2, which is just kind of stupid.
You have a
Which I-
Heavy Mother too.
which I enjoy.
bad
I
take.
enjoy stupidity. It's also like going back to Krautrocket once again. It's a reference to Amandul 2. Amandul 2, like they were a German band from the early 70s. Well, they were from a commune that was called Amandul. I don't know what that means, but like there was 2 different bands that formed within the commune, and so there was Amandul, who were just like a freakathon, free improv, like crazy thing, and then there's Amandul 2, who were more like a psychedelic band. Anyway, so our name Heavy Mother 2 is a reference to that, and also to Blue Oyster Cult, because the O in Mother, only for Heavy Mother 2, has an umlaut
Mm-hmm.
over it.
Hell yeah.
It's really stupid. And in Almond Duel 2, there's umlauts over the U in the DUUL. So it's just,
Yeah.
it's goofy humor. But we played a show at SSP at State Street.
Hell yeah.
Like we recorded 2 days, and then the night of the second day we played a show. We recorded 40 minutes worth of music. We've already, I mean, it's coming out on Total Punk at the beginning of 2025. So it's already, it's almost ready to go. I got a vocal overdub to do, and there's a couple other things that are being done, but it's, so it was cool too, because like we just went in with like a couple of ideas for cover songs, and then a couple of very sketchy song ideas, and recorded like a bunch of shit. A lot of it just totally spontaneous, like just improvised, literally, which is a lot of what I did with Crawl Space. So I'm very used to working in those situations. I really, I like it. I enjoy it. It's just, there's something about doing like free improv where it's like, you don't know where you're going. So I've never really been nervous about performing, but there's like sort of a heightened sense of reality. There always is anyway, but when you're doing improv, especially, because like there's a slight bit of anxiety because I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where this is going.
That's almost kind of like what we're doing right now.
Yeah,
I mean, this
it
is a live show.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and you mentioned State Street Pub. By the way, I know it's getting a little late, but if you're looking for something to do, head over to State Street Pub. They have a killer show tonight with the Brides, a Hozak Ripoff Records band with Wet Motherfucking Denim. I love you, Stephen Riddle. I fucking love you, man.
There you go, Hozak.
Death Party from Austin, and Lousy Sue featuring one of the most coolest dudes I've ever worked with. Recorded with him, Jim Kuchkowski. I love you, Kuch. That's going down at State Street. I just wanted to, you mentioned State Street Pub, so I was like, hey, little shout out in case.
I love State Street Pub, man.
Oh, yeah.
Mark Tester. Hey, dude,
Hell yeah. Shout out Jimmy Peony.
Shep,
Fuck yeah.
Shep, have you seen or heard of the band Skull Cult?
Skull Cult.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Dude, like,
I'm gonna write it down.
well, I've heard a lot about them, man, and I guess they're like a really good band, but that's because you mentioned them.
Yeah.
And they're certainly on my list of bands that I should see at some point.
I have this.
I know
little-
they played up here a couple times, and I've like
Eddie has. Eddie
they've been around in one form or another since I think like
just
2017.
filled this notebook up with things I had to follow up on tomorrow and check out. So
Yeah, I haven't seen the current lineup of Skull Cult, which is kind of lame because our guitarist Kellen is in it, and then the guy who recorded our stuff a couple weekends ago, the Heavy Mother 2 stuff, he plays synth in it or keyboard, whatever. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
Synthesizer. But anyway, yeah.
what do they play exactly?
Well, did you ever hear the Coneheads?
The Cone, like
I literally went
Coneheads.
right to SNL.
Are we talking about Dan Aykroyd? Or are we
Yeah.
talking about-
No, the Coneheads were
Jane Curtis.
the Coneheads were a band from somewhere in northern Indiana. I forget the town.
Indiana? What the fuck?
Yes.
This is like pre Dan Aykroyd.
And they were they
Definitely
got,
not French.
They got so much attention when they were around.
When was that?
10, 15 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That like they turned down Vice and stuff. They turned down people who were offering them things because they were, I guess, trying to keep it pure. I never saw them. I like their records.
That's cool.
But anyway, so Skull Cult and Connor, hey, if you're listening, which I know you're not, or I guess Connor Martin is now calling himself Basil instead of Connor, which I guess is his real first name. Whatever, do your own thing, man. But it's like Skull Cult always struck me. Well, okay. The Coneheads were labeled as Devocore.
Okay.
Because it's kind of Devo-esque.
Kind of like
but it's hardcore punk.
the pilots, right? Pilots is a Devo core band.
That's
Yeah, they're not very
Yeah.
punky, but they played at that show at State Street that we played a couple weeks ago. Yeah, I like those guys.
Hell
They're
yeah.
good.
I think
Awesome
they're
people.
cool. I think
Yeah,
they're
they got a show coming up
Yeah.
too,
They-
by the way. Should I plug it? Should I plug it?
Sure,
I
go
mean,
ahead. Go ahead.
so you're like, oh shit. But here's the thing. I just love indie and I love everything that's going on.
Hey.
Sloppy motherfucking seconds.
Hey, I saw it today.
Oh yeah.
I'm
Like I said earlier today, I about pissed my panties. Featuring Raging Nathan's Pilots, who we're discussing right now, Ninth Circle Symphony, and the remote controls.
See, we should have
That's a
been
punk rock night
we should
event.
have been playing on that bill because when the Gizmos we were reunited in 2014 and
I
we
saw that,
we
yeah.
played at Goner Fest and I mean maybe we shouldn't be playing with Sloppy Seconds because I can't remember the guy's name, but the singer from Sloppy
BA.
Seconds and a couple other guys came up and sang on stage with us at some point, and I think it was the guy from Sloppy Seconds. He had his new record and he was trying in vain to light it on fire with a cigarette lighter to throw it into the audience, and it never would happen. And he just,
Look,
it was pretty hilarious and very Gizmo. So,
oh yeah.
yeah.
I love BA.
is
Man, he's such a cool dude.
Yeah, total. Well, my first Indianapolis experience was them, and it was like to this day, it was one of the most insane shows I've ever attended.
I hope I'm saying the right band. It just dawned on me. It's like, is it Sloppy Seconds? Or where's Sloppy Seconds from?
They're from Indy.
Oh
Yeah.
no, I'm wrong. Sorry,
Which band are you thinking of?
I don't know.
I mean, we have Toxic Reasons.
no,
we
it's
have,
not. No. This
Uh,
was a band that was like from Louisiana or.
oh,
somewhere
okay,
else.
okay.
I don't know. Is there another sloppy band? Sorry,
I don't know.
I can't remember
I don't know.
fucking anything. So
Shoot, I can't either.
I can remember everything before like 1980, but I don't know what's happened since.
Hell yeah. Speaking of, I want to throw this out there. I got a question for you, Eddie.
Yeah.
I've got two questions that are like burning in my heart right now. Like burning.
I got like a 3 or 4
Hell yeah,
point
hell
X-rays. Go
hell
ahead,
yeah.
go ahead.
I want to hear the most ludicrous show you've ever played. Like that just sits in your memory like, man, I'll never forget that
Well,
show.
I know when it is.
Oh, let's go, baby.
In fact,
Let's
he-
go,
he-
Eddie.
He was there.
Hell yeah.
It was the last show we did in 2022, probably October, before Mark McWhorter moved to Mexico City.
Yeah.
And it was he was promoted. It might have been the most people we've ever played in front of. And for some insane reason, okay, I decided to eat some mushrooms. It's like that's pretty normal for me. I've tripped on stage many times over the years, but I weighed them out, so I knew what I had. And so I weighed out an eighth, and I ate them, which is a normal, like, pretty strong dose. It's a normal dose.
Yeah.
And what you should do if you're going to do a show. But then there was another eighth just sitting there, and I ate those too. So I did a 1/4 ounce of shrooms, and by the time it was time for us to play, like, I didn't know what I was doing. I just, and so I'm still embarrassed. I've seen these videos. I mean, I don't watch the videos anymore, but if I did, I would be embarrassed if I saw it because, like, okay, I can't remember any of the lyrics, so I'm just going in a real fucking obvious way, and I'm falling down. I can't stand up. And then mostly I'm just getting off the stage and walking over to the side of the stage while those guys are standing up going like, what are we going to do? And so they mostly just kind of jam. They played, I think, a couple of songs, maybe just instrumental. At one point, our bass player Chode was like, just sitting in the microphone, was like, hey, does anybody out there know the lyrics to these songs? Because, yeah. And so I'd get it was.
That reminds me,
It was
I
fucking,
saw.
it was fucking dumb, and I was embarrassed because I'm such an experienced tripper, And I've done it so many times, and it's like, yeah, and somehow I fucked up. I fucked up and felt like a fool, and still feel like a. Although everybody I've ever talked to about it, I don't know, except maybe Jacob. He didn't give me his opinion. Everybody was like, "It was awesome, man." And it's like, what do you
Well,
mean it was a mess?
Then,
well,
shit, fuck, hell yeah.
but I think my opinion was that Mark McWhorter,
Oh yeah,
like fucking he
made it.
I
He made it work.
well, I think I would say if I had to pick like the best guitar player I've seen play,
He's up there.
he made the show entertaining with the singer fucking.
I want to say,
freaking out in the
Scotty
corner.
Burke, I do not stand behind his statement. I just, I don't know, man. You happen to
Mark-
work with one of my favorite guitar players in this
Mark-
band.
Hey, he's great too. He's
Mark
great
is a
too.
motherfucker.
Hell yeah.
But
He is a
Well, but-
very rare player.
I was just saying, like that shit. Basically, he was he was freaking out. He was like freaking out,
I
like
was just, yeah.
yeah,
I didn't-
and so Mark was like forced to like just how do I keep this entertaining for like 5 minutes, and he was doing all kinds of shit you don't see guitar players do. It's like what can you do? It's like, okay, I'll play the riff and then I'll a little lead. Okay, we'll go up to the higher octave, do some shit there, like maybe do some fucking harmonics. But it's like trick after trick after trick. And I'm like, man, I don't, as long as I've been playing, I don't know like half the shit this guy knows. Like, but I remember like leaving like, wow, fucking wow. Like that's good guitar playing right there.
Hell
like,
yeah. Hell
But
yeah.
no, I love Mark McWhorter, man.
Oh, me
I
too,
love that
me
guy.
too.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. And actually, you know, like he moved to Mexico City. Like Jason and I were talking about visiting him there in Mexico City, and he was telling us all about it and you know how cool it is, and he was gonna like host us when we went down there. But I don't know. I guess I hear that he's coming back, so I don't know.
Nice.
See.
So just to you know, catch up with these comments. So BA is actually watching and
Cool.
commenting on the show.
Awesome.
He said this is A. And Beamer chimed in on the cone heads, and he shared a YouTube link, which if you're on Facebook or whatnot, you can click that and check that out.
Wow.
And then BA chimed in, the legends come out for Shep. Hi, Eddie. So BA from Salty Seconds says, what's up, Eddie? And Garrett Dean commented something. And the thing is, we here in studio, we can't actually see what you posted. Hopefully it's like a fire emoji or maybe a little bit of that. And then Shamba Jennings chimed in and said, nice.
Shamba Jennings. She's a good friend of mine.
Damn, I misread that, huh? And then, here we go. Hef is chiming in. Eddie, will you sign my Johnny Cougar t-shirt?
Fuck yeah, dude.
Fuck yeah.
That's my friend Hef. He's ragging on me.
Hell yeah.
What does that mean?
Jordan Allen.
Hef means Hefe. I mean, that's like the king, the ruler.
No, that's just short for his last name. He doesn't like his name, so he goes by Hef.
Right off.
But anyway,
Shep.
but it's a reference to 10 years ago when we first did the Gizmos reunion. Jordan Allen, who played with the Heavy Mother 2 a couple of weeks ago, he showed up. I didn't know who he was. Introduced himself. It was like, "Will you sign my shirt?" And he had on like the oldest, most ragged Johnny Cougar t-shirt. So it was like pre-Mellencamp, and it was like, "Fuck yeah!" So he had the whole band autograph the shirt.
Nice.
I love that guy.
I love that
love that
reference.
guy.
That's
Jordan,
awesome.
Yeah. You know
Well,
Jordan.
John Cougar. I love him.
Oh, well, good for you.
Yeah,
I don't.
He's great.
Oh, I can't.
Mixed reviews.
Oh, no.
Mixed reviews
No,
at Midweek
I have a
Crisis.
little bit of a, I mean, I don't care.
I'm a fan of his
good-
producer,
good-
Paul
good
Maher.
for
Yeah.
him.
Zero
Fuck
Boys, that's
yeah,
for
you
sure.
know. But like okay. When his first record came out in 1976, I'm a rock critic, so I got it in the mail.
Oh well, yeah.
And then I
I get that.
It's like, oh wow, it's recorded in Bloomington. It's like, how weird is that? There's this thing on MCA recorded in Bloomington, and so I reviewed it, and it was a mixed review. I didn't say it was shit.
At least you're
Well,
honest.
But I said it's like
That's what matters.
I said it's like overall. I think sort of what I said is overall is kind of like it's like kind of fake Springsteen.
well,
And so he had a
hey, what up, man?
he had a real
What up?
fucking grudge against me. And so in 1977, when we did the second sessions, he somehow Bob Richard had made friends with him or whatever. Actually, Bob released an EP on Gulcher of early Mellencamp demos that many years later Mellencamp claimed was a bootleg, which was just a fucking lie. But anyway, so Bob had contacted him. So Cougar came in the studio with the Gizmos to record one of his songs, and it was recorded, but it wasn't released till our CD in like 2000. But me and the background singer I mentioned earlier, who was just kind of accidentally in the Gizmos, we thought that he was so fucking lame, we wouldn't even stay in the studio while it was being recorded. So
I could understand that.
I mean,
understand
did
that.
you guys bring a little stepping stool for him to like stand on?
he's very tiny.
I've heard he's
yeah,
really short.
he's real short.
No, like
They a lot of them are.
somebody else I met said that they worked on a music video set that he was on, and he's like, I guess he was going to be filmed standing next to his wife, and he's like, "Hey, I need to stand on something. Like,
Oh
you
man,
better have something for me to stand."
I'm glad my
funny.
joke makes sense. Oh, can I hit the button? Just yeah, just drop it.
No, but
Just
yeah,
drop it.
I fully get that. You know, I think he's someone who he had to learn to write songs under the pressure of having an opportunity, and he had several shitty albums.
I mean, yeah,
like-
definitely no
like-
disrespect to the Cougar,
like
but
all of them.
I just like
disagree,
poking
man.
fun.
No, I can't stand the guy. But,
That's all right. That's all right.
Yeah, that's how it goes. So like we have so little time left, and there's this question, and you are free range, Jacob. This is my last
I got
question.
like 3 things I want to say.
Great.
think.
So, but I want to get mine out real quick.
Okay.
Eddie, what is the best advice you've ever been given?
Loaded question.
wow.
It's loaded. It's heavy.
Wow. Okay. I mean, I don't really know, but just picking it out of the air. Once again, it's Richard Meltzer, who after I'd been to LA for the first time in 77 and had my heart broken by the porn slut. And then like I moved back. I remember writing Meltzer in like 79. It's like, hey, I'm moving to LA for real this time. And he's like, are you crazy? It's like, move anywhere. Don't move to this city. This city sucks. I've only been here for a year and I want to move. It's like, move to New York. I left New York because I had used it up. It's like, move anywhere. Don't move to LA. And it's like, he was right in the long run. I mean, but I did allude to a lot of shit up.
I mean, you were there. You were in LA for some huge.
Oh, I know.
movement. That's
But
amazing.
but
man.
it was overall, in spite of the good times, it's just a soul sucking city, man.
That's what I hear.
It's not it's a bad place, and it's always been a bad place, and it's just the worst place now. So it's
Why do you say it's the worst place now?
Oh,
because I mean, I haven't been there in 6 years, but 6 years ago it was already like,
thank you, Jeremy.
the homeless problem was already just like stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and friends of mine, when I'll talk
That was
to
when?
2018.
Okay.
And I'll talk to people out there now, and it's like, oh man, it's unbelievably worse than it was when you left here. As in, like, you'll walk. A friend of mine who was in the Lazy Cowgirls, he's still out there, and he told me it's like if you walk down like I forget what street it was, like a main thoroughfare where there's just a normal area where there's businesses and everything. It's like there's just tents up and down the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, Jesus Christ, dude. At least when I was out there, it was still like there was a lot of homeless
Encampments.
people everywhere, like asking for money and stuff. And there were encampments on the banks of the LA River. The LA River is cemented in. So it was a river, and they still call it a river, but it's not really a river. and there's
Mhm.
rarely water in it. And it's just, you see it like driving along the freeways, but there started to be tents of people just living on the upper part of, above the LA River. So it's away from people at least, but it's not anymore. It's just everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's
it's like, it's something that can't be sustained unless the United States is going to become like an entirely other country.
yeah.
And it sucked to begin with. I mean, it sucked 40 years ago in many ways. So, I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
there was always Skid Row. I mean, if you'd gone to Skid Row in 1980, you would have fucking freaked out. I mean, it's just, it was just an area where people were allowed to congregate and shoot drugs and everything on the idea of like, well, at least they're in this one little area. They didn't stay there. And now there's like 100 times more of them. And I've been homeless myself. So,
Same.
I
I've been
understand
there.
it. I mean,
Yeah.
I spent a day in the street and a day in a homeless, overnight in a homeless shelter, and then 3 days in a mental institution to get off the street. Not because
And all you wanted was a Pepsi.
all I wanted was somewhere to not be outside.
So to reiterate, that best advice was from
Don't move to Los Angeles.
you heard it here first.
And I think that's great advice, because I hear like younger people a lot of time are like, I want to move, I want to go to a cool place, X, Y, Z. But dude, you can make the
Oh
most.
yeah.
No, I mean,
Hey,
within 2 or 3 years of me moving to LA in 79, it started becoming like you could be Husker Du and stay in Minneapolis. It's like, oh God, you don't have to move to New York or LA, But
Mhm.
before that, the whole mentality is like, if you're gonna
Yeah.
do a band, you
Mhm.
got to go to one of the big cities. And it's
Mhm.
like, and then eventually it became like, oh, you really don't have to.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I just want to throw this out there. There's a band from Louisville that I love and adore called Belushi Speedball.
Okay.
They're from Louisville, Kentucky. They were just in Europe. They're in Tennessee tonight, and they're killing it. And they're Midwest rep. And you don't have to move
No, I
from
mean,
Indy. You don't have to move from
no,
Louisville.
you have it for a long time.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
But,
exactly.
But
Yeah.
I'm sure there's still foolish people who do it. I don't know.
Stay here. Stay where you're at. I mean, that's your art is a depiction of your surroundings and the people.
You're also
around.
just not any more likely to make it if that's what you're trying to do by going to New York or LA, especially not now. I mean,
Well,
they're cities that are like collapsing.
We lost the camera. Oh, poor Jacob. Well, I'll get that fixed up here in just a second. Actually, so shoot, what do I do in that? Let's see. Well,
Are we still going?
oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I just lost his camera, but I know how to fix that pretty quickly.
let me pee real quick.
Yeah, let's real quick, we'll just do a quick shout out to our sponsor, the Button Guy, and we'll be right back.
These segments made up in my mind, tormented by the thoughts inside. They're coming like an in the cow, not running. Never take the fall. Every footsteps closing in behind. Surrounded, there's nowhere to hide. Overcoming, still standing tall. Quit running, I'll let you It's my life to throw away. Hello, goodbye. Are you high? Hello, goodbye. Are you
to Gilligan's Island.
Hey, if you're
Hitting my back.
or when you're at work,
Yeah.
your last 8 minutes at work. That's a long
Oh
time.
yeah. Yep. So we're back with Eddie and Jacob hanging out. Quick commercial. Had to fix some cameras. That is part of doing a live broadcast. So, and I would like to close this show out with a question from the lovely Jacob Cagan of Leather and Mace.
So I think I already answered or asked. Two of my questions have already been answered. But so one thing that I wanted to ask is, I remember talking to you a few months ago, and you were telling me about a band that was very influential to you, who did everything via like stream of consciousness, or like just like intuitive, like
that was probably Can,
okay,
the German band we were talking about earlier.
okay, because I think you had a record that was like influenced by them or something.
Yeah, I did a record when I was in Bloomington in 2016 to do the 40th anniversary of the Gizmos, which had both lineups of the Gizmos. We don't need to go into that because we don't have time. But when I was there, I recorded a bunch of stuff with some guys there at Magnetic South. I should say who it was. It was Will Staler, John Dawson, Tyler Damon, and Eric Weddle. Maybe you know some of those names. I don't know. They were all Hoosier
I feel
guys.
like Eric Weddle sounds familiar.
Eric Weddle runs a label called Family Vineyard.
Did he used to do the sound at Rhinos?
Not that I know about. Anyway, I recorded some stuff there in 2016. It finally came out on LP in 2019 on Feeding Tube Records, which is a really amazing label from Western Massachusetts.
So the band is Can, C-A-N?
Yeah, but my thing was called Eddie Flowers and the Wax Lip Swamp Dub. And
The Wax Lip
Wax
Swamp Dub.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And I'm sure that's what it was, because that stuff that was the Wax Lip Swamp Dub, or as I later figured out when I looked at the letters of the name, is WLSD.
Hey,
it's like
LSD,
and it's like, okay, that's not on purpose, but it's got to be.
That's cool.
So yeah,
it's cool.
Subconsciously, it was.
So anyway, that stuff is definitely influenced by Can, and in fact, the drummer Tyler Damon, who's done a lot of like improv stuff and weird music in Chicago, he's a big fan of Jackie Leibzeit, who was the drummer from Can. So
does Can have a song that you would recommend us listen to, or can you reduce it to a song?
Well, not really,
No?
but I could choose one.
Okay.
Let's see. Well, I'll choose one from the first lineup. It was like the same four guys the whole time, but they had a couple different singers. The first singer was an American black dude named Malcolm Mooney.
Malcolm Mooney.
And for him, I'll choose a song. It's called Little Star of Bethlehem. And that I'll choose because Crawlspace did an insane cover version of it that went on for like 17 minutes on our first album. And then
some Allman Brothers shit right there.
Well,
oh damn!
Yeah, except it's
damn!
Except it's not remotely like the Allman Brothers.
I got you.
Although Allman Brothers at Fillmore East, one of the best records ever made.
Hell yeah!
Well, no, even Scott.
I'm a huge. I just love music.
Well, you were tooting Scotty's horn. He's been all about the Allman Brothers. He's like, man, Allman
Brothers, man, fuck yeah.
And the second lineup of Can, where they had a Japanese singer named Damo Suzuki.
It's a good name, Damo Suzuki.
Yeah, which is not his real name, of course. But I don't know. That's hard to choose. But I would say the album, I think it's their fourth album. And it's called, and I don't know how to pronounce it still, even though I've been listening to it for more than 50 years. It's Ege Bamyasi. That's EGE BAMYASI. And that whole album is just, it's so good. But they have a bunch of great records. So,
hell yeah.
Listen to Can. Everybody listen to Can.
Yeah, I'm gonna check them out.
You might not like it. It's not punk rock, although it's weird as fuck.
I'm about music.
I'm same. Same.
You don't have to
I love
put a
it all.
label on it for me, man.
I love it
Well,
all.
although their first album, which is called Monster Movie, is very influenced by the early Velvet Underground. So
Oh, cool.
you could say in some ways, it's still connected to punk. And they were Can was a major influence on The Fall. If you know The Fall,
I know The Fall.
Marky Smith.
Yeah.
So in fact, The Fall had a song called "I Am Damo Suzuki,"
Oh, cool.
named after their second singer.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I'll tell you what, Eddie, Jacob, it has been phenomenal.
It's been fun.
I love doing this, and this is exactly this show tonight, hanging out with the two of you, is exactly why I love doing it. Like, man, Eddie, I had no idea about your history and zines, and that is just so amazing. And I fucking love you, Jacob.
I love you too.
I
man.
fucking love you, bub. One of my favorite guys. Luna, I wish you could have been here, baby. Next time, right? Next time. It's funny, a year ago we were sitting here and I was eating shrooms. Fucking, we went down to Woody's and did karaoke.
Tell him about the gas station shrooms.
Oh,
He was...
dude, yeah, the gas station shrooms. It's basically like the what is it, Delta 9 of marijuana. So you can get shrooms from a gas station, and they sell it right down the street. It's whatever, the scientists and stuff. So
It's not psilocybin,
was,
obviously.
no. Oh no! Wait,
was-
hold on. Was it? I can't remember.
Surely not.
Surely,
it can't-
maybe.
No, it
Who
can't
knows?
be.
I mean,
No.
the
I think
scientists could do all kinds of crazy
psilocybin
shit.
is still class.
Then
A-
maybe not.
I think
They
it's still
probably-
classified like heroin. So
Either way,
They
yeah.
probably changed the molecule slightly.
something.
I love
Yeah,
it.
I
I
know,
love
I
it. You
know.
guys drove all the way up here to fucking hang out and shoot the shit in fucking LaPel, Indiana. And I know you've been driving all day, Jake.
Hey,
I
I'm about
like-
to do- I love to drive.
Let's
I love,
do this. Let's do this again.
when we
I love
drove-
cars.
When we drove around this little town, I loved it. I
Oh,
thought-
yeah.
I
Hey,
think
we
it's
encountered
such
a lot-
charming little
800
town.
residents.
We encountered
It's
a
like-
lot of
it's-
people just in a few minutes.
Golf
Hell yeah.
carts.
Well, we are out of time. You guys fucking roll. It's been so much fun. Let's fucking do this again, and let's do
Right
it again
on.
soon.
For sure.
We got so much more to talk about. So, Eddie,
Thank you.
dude, I just met you. I love you.
Thanks,
Fucking
man.
Jake,
Thanks,
I love you, buddy.
Love you too, man.
Be sure tomorrow night we're doing it's back, baby. We're gonna be doing another Mile High Club. Let me pull that up real quick. I do want to throw this out there. Motherfucking there it is. Hail Your Highness from Northern Michigan is gonna be on the podcast tomorrow. Be sure to tune in and check it out. And once again, thank you guys for coming out. And that is what's up, right?
Good night,
That's what's
Good
up.
night, everybody.
Good night.
I don't wanna go to school, I don't wanna go to work. I don't want a bunch of clock, I don't